Friedrich Nietzsche's dark wisdom. There is a silence in the world that most people never hear. It is not the absence of sound, but the absence of meaning. Nietzsche called it the abyss. That infinite emptiness staring back when all illusions crumble. Most of us spend our lives avoiding it, filling it with routines, distractions, and borrowed beliefs. We sleepwalk from day to day, afraid to look too closely at what is beneath the surface of everything we think we know. But the truth waits, patient and unyielding. The abyss doesn't move. It doesn't shout. It simply exists, a reflection of the world stripped bare. And when you stare into it long enough, you see yourself, not the self you were told to be, but the self that has always been waiting, trembling in the shadows. Nietzsche did not promise comfort. He promised confrontation. He promised the recognition that if the world has no inherent purpose, then the weight of creating meaning falls entirely on your shoulders. To step into that void is terrifying. To remain outside it is to live a lie. The death of gods. In every age, humanity has constructed gods to give life shape, to give suffering meaning, to make the unbearable bearable. Nietzsche looked round and saw these gods, these sacred illusions, and he declared them dead, not in a moment of celebration, but in a moment of solemn mourning. When gods die, the structures that held our beliefs, our morality, our certainty, crumble. The ground beneath our feet becomes uncertain, and foremost, terrifying. Yet, in that collapse lies opportunity. The silence that follows the death of gods is not emptiness to fear. It is a canvas. Without the weight of divine decree, we are free. Free to create, free to define, free to shape the contours of our own existence. But freedom is a burden heavier than any divine law. It requires courage, not for a moment, but for a lifetime. To live without the comfort of unquestioned rules is to embrace responsibility in its rawest form. Most recoil. They clutch at new idols, at ideologies, at the illusions of power or wealth, seeking stability in forms just as fragile as the ones that crumbled. But a rare few understand that with the death of gods comes the birth of possibility. Possibility that is terrifying, yes, but exhilarating, because it is yours alone. Confronting the void. To stand at the edge of the abyss is not merely to witness emptiness. It is to see yourself reflected in its cold and flinching gaze. Those who glance away, who retreat to the warmth of distraction, may sleep peacefully. But those who dare to look, truly look, see the contours of their own limitations, the illusions they have carried for decades, the stories they have told themselves to avoid the unbearable weight of truth. Nietzsche insisted that this confrontation is essential. It is not optional, for in the act of facing the void, we discover the contours of our own strength. The abyss tests you. It does not punish you. It asks, what will you do when nothing is given? What will you create when all comforts vanish? Most flinch. They cling to outdated morals, rigid beliefs, and borrowed meaning. But a few learn to breathe in the emptiness. They accept the silence. They accept the responsibility. They begin to craft a life from the fragments, forging purpose from the raw materials of reality itself. This is the paradox Nietzsche cherished. The void is terrifying, yet it is the birthplace of freedom. Only by acknowledging the abyss can one truly begin to shape a world that is authentically one's own. And the will to power. Once we have faced the void, once we have seen the collapse of old gods and old illusions, there emerges a force within a force that Nietzsche called the will to power. It is not power over others, not conquest or domination, as the uninitiated might think. It is power over oneself. It is the relentless drive to shape, to create, to impose meaning where none exists. The world offers nothing by default. no comfort, no guarantee, no moral compass. The will to power is the recognition that if you want life to matter, if you want your existence to hold weight, you must generate that meaning yourself. This power is subtle. It is not a sudden transformation, but a quiet insistence to think, to act, to endure, to shape every thought, every choice, every action in alignment with your own values. Most never grasp it. They drift, buffeted by chance and circumstance, hoping someone else will hand them purpose. But those who seize the will to power take responsibility not just for themselves, but for the very world they inhabit. To embrace this force is to accept both creation and destruction. You will destroy the illusions that once comforted you. You will dismantle the beliefs that no longer serve. Yet through this destruction, a new architecture rises, your architecture, unique, unflinching, and alive, in the quiet of the night, when the world seems indifferent and empty. It is this will that whispers, you are not here to survive, you are here to become. The eternal recurrence. Imagine, for a moment, that everything you have ever done, every joy, every sorrow, every fleeting thought, would be repeated endlessly forever. Nietzsche called this the eternal recurrence, the idea that the universe does not forgive, does not forget, and does not change. Every moment, every choice, loops back upon itself in infinite repetition. At first, this thought terrifies. To live a life only to live it again and again seems a punishment. How could any ordinary existence bear the weight of eternity? Yet, in this unbearable vision lies a hidden truth. If one can embrace the eternal recurrence, if one can love life so profoundly that even its repetition is desired, then one has achieved the ultimate affirmation of existence. This is not resignation. It is not passivity. It is the complete acceptance of reality, in its beauty and cruelty alike. To affirm life, knowing it is cyclical, is to say, I will bear this. I will create in this. I will live fully despite it all. Most shrink from this thought, terrified of the endless loop. But a few, those who have stared into the abyss and harnessed the will to power, rise to meet it. They live as if every action echoes eternally, knowing that every choice matters not just now, but in infinite reflection. To contemplate the eternal recurrence is to confront yourself in your most honest form. It is a reminder that life offers no do-overs, no rewrites, and if you can embrace this truth, you learn to live in a way that honors every moment, no matter how dark, no matter how fleeting. Becoming who you are. To become who you are is not a simple journey. It is not a moment of discovery, but a slow, relentless shaping of yourself from the raw material of existence. Nietzsche insisted that each person carries within them the potential to create their own values, their own rules, their own meaning. This potential is only realized through struggle, reflection, and honesty. Most people live as echoes of others, repeating inherited beliefs and following paths laid out by society. They are content with familiarity, with comfort, with the illusion of purpose handed down to them. But to become truly oneself, one must break these patterns. One must look within, question every assumption, confront every fear, and decide what is worth carrying forward and what must be abandoned. It is a solitary path. It is quiet, uncelebrated, often lonely. Yet within that solitude lies clarity, without the noise of others' expectations. You begin to hear the subtle truths of your own mind, the rhythms of your own will. To become who you are is to embrace both your darkness and your light, to accept the weight of freedom, and to forge a life that is not borrowed, but truly your own. It is the slow creation of a self that is authentic, unyielding, and alive. Embracing suffering. Suffering is inevitable. No one escapes it. No matter how careful or fortunate, Yet most of us spend our lives running from it, distracting ourselves with comfort, pleasure, or false meaning. Nietzsche, however, saw suffering not as an enemy, but as a guide. It is through suffering that the deepest truths of existence reveal themselves, that the raw material of the self is forged. To embrace suffering is not to seek pain, nor to glorify misery. It is to acknowledge the weight of life and to allow it to shape you, slowly, steadily, without denial. Each difficulty, each loss, each moment of despair carries within it a lesson, a reflection of the strength, resilience, and creativity that lies dormant in all of us. Those who deny it remain fragile. Those who confront it emerge stronger, more aware, and more alive. In this acceptance, suffering loses some of its terror. It becomes a teacher, a companion, an instrument of transformation. The abyss no longer simply stares back at you, it begins to speak, revealing the contours of your power, your potential, your freedom. Life does not owe you comfort. It does not promise ease, but by embracing suffering, by recognizing it as an inseparable part of existence, you learn to live fully, to act intentionally, and to find meaning even in the darkest hours. The art of solitude. Solitude is not emptiness. It is a space where the mind can breathe, where thought can unfold without interruption, where the self can be confronted without disguise. Nietzsche understood that to truly become who you are, you must learn the art of being alone, not lonely, but deeply, profoundly alone with your own mind. In solitude, the illusions of society fall away, the expectations of others lose their grip, the noise of the world fades, and you are left with the unadorned truth of yourself. Most fear this quiet. They fill it with chatter, distractions, and company, unable to face the reflection staring back at them. But those who embrace solitude discover clarity. They see the patterns of their own thoughts, the motives behind their actions, the impulses that drive their lives. Solitude is a mirror of the abyss, yet unlike the abyss, it is not threatening, it is nurturing. It allows the mind to explore, to create, to imagine, and to cultivate the strength necessary to live freely. In these quiet moments, you begin to understand that the path to authenticity is walked alone, not in isolation from the world, but in harmony with your inner self, and in this alignment, the world becomes less a cage and more a canvas, dancing with fate. Life is unpredictable. It does not bend to your desires, your plans, or your comfort. Chance and chaos are constant companions, shaping moments beyond your control. Nietzsche called this amor fati, the love of one's fate, to embrace life fully. One must accept not only the joys but the trials, the disappointments, the unchangeable events, and even the suffering that seems senseless. Most resist fate, fighting against it, longing for a control over what cannot be controlled. They curse their circumstances, lament the unfairness of existence, and waste precious energy wishing the world were different. To dance with fate is to move with it rather than against it. It is to recognize that every experience, no matter how dark or difficult, is part of the texture of your life. Each moment carries lessons, each challenge shapes strength, each sorrow teaches resilience. In this acceptance, life ceases to be merely endured and begins to be experienced fully. The rhythm of existence, once terrifying in its unpredictability, becomes a kind of music, one in which you learn the steps, improvise when necessary, and sometimes simply sway with the flow. Nietzsche's message is clear. The world will not yield to your wishes, but you can yield to it gracefully, deliberately, and with awareness. In this dance, you find freedom, creativity, and the profound serenity that comes from aligning yourself with life as it is, forging your own values. When the old gods have fallen and the illusions of society dissolve, You are left with yourself and the raw expanse of existence. Nietzsche insisted that this is where true freedom begins, not in comfort or conformity, but in the deliberate creation of your own values. Most people inherit their morals, their priorities, their sense of right and wrong. They repeat what was told to them, believing it to be sacred or universal. But inherited values are fragile. They crumble when confronted with the unfiltered reality of life. To forge your own values is to take full responsibility for your life. It is to decide what matters, what is worth striving for, and what can be discarded. This is not easy. It requires introspection, courage, and relentless honesty. In doing so, you become the author of your own existence. You are no longer a passive participant, swept along by circumstance or by the expectations of others. Every choice you make, every action you take, is imbued with intention. Nietzsche understood that this creation is ongoing. You will falter, you will doubt, you will face moments of despair, but in the continuous act of shaping your values, of choosing meaning even when it is not given, you find a power that is both liberating and profound. In the quiet hours, when the world sleeps, you can reflect on what you have chosen to embrace, what you have allowed to define you, and what you have rejected, and in this reflection, you grow not by the dictates of others, but by the deliberate shaping of yourself. Living with intentionality. To live intentionally is to move through life with awareness of every thought, every choice, every action. It is the application of the values you have forged, the conscious creation of a life that reflects your deepest understanding of yourself. Most drift through their days on autopilot, reacting to circumstances, repeating patterns, and allowing external forces to dictate their direction. They confuse motion with progress, activity with meaning. In this practice, life becomes less a series of random events and more a landscape shaped by your own will. Every decision carries significance. Every moment is an opportunity to affirm your values. Every encounter a chance to practice the life you have decided to live. Nietzsche saw this as the mark of the truly alive. Those who move with purpose, who embrace responsibility for themselves, and who act with clarity even in the absence of external validation. And so, in the quiet of the night, as the world sleeps round you, there is an opportunity to reflect, to adjust, and to continue shaping a life that is not given, but consciously and fully claimed. The path of self-overcoming. Life is not a static journey. It is a continuous process of becoming, of challenging oneself, of rising beyond limitations imposed by circumstance, habit, or fear. Nietzsche called this the path of self-overcoming, the relentless pursuit of growth. Even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is painful, most avoid this path. They settle for the familiar, the predictable, the safe. They cling to old comforts rather than confront the uncertainty of transformation. But comfort is a cage, and the self that remains there is never fully realized. To overcome oneself is to examine every weakness, every failing, every hesitation, and to confront them without evasion. It is to understand that pain, struggle, and resistance are not obstacles to avoid, but tools to forge a stronger, wiser self. The process is neither quick nor easy. It demands vigilance, courage, and an unwavering commitment to personal truth. Yet with each small conquest, each fear faced, each habit reshaped, each illusion discarded, the self expands, grows sharper, and moves closer to the authentic being it was always capable of becoming. Nietzsche's vision was not one of perfection, but of continuous evolution. The goal is not to reach a final state, but to remain in motion, to cultivate strength through conscious effort, and to embrace the transformative power that exists within every challenge and every moment of adversity. In this path, the abyss no longer terrifies. It becomes a companion, a mirror reflecting the progress of your own becoming, showing both the shadows you have faced and the light you have forged from them. Finding stillness in chaos. The world is never still. It moves, it shifts, it twists unpredictably, carrying both beauty and destruction in its flow. To live fully is to acknowledge that chaos is the natural state of existence. Most fear chaos. They seek routines, rules, and certainties to buffer themselves from its unpredictability. But these structures are fragile, temporary, and ultimately illusory. Nietzsche teaches us to find stillness not by controlling the world, but by cultivating an inner equilibrium. In the eye of chaos, there is a central space within yourself where clarity, calm, and awareness reside. This stillness is not numbness. It is not avoidance. It is the conscious choice to observe, to reflect, to act with intention, even when the surrounding world is turbulent and unforgiving. By finding stillness in chaos, the abyss no longer threatens. The unpredictability of life becomes a rhythm to move with rather than a storm to escape. You learn to flow with events without surrendering your own purpose. In this quiet, reflective space, the lessons of suffering, self-overcoming, and intentional living converge. You can see the patterns of your own life, the consequences of your choices, and the power inherent in embracing reality as it is both the light and the dark. And in this convergence, there is a profound serenity, a stillness that does not deny life's challenges, but integrates them into the rhythm of becoming. Eternal growth and reflection. Life does not offer final answers. There is no ultimate destination, no point at which one can claim completion. Nietzsche understood that existence is an ongoing process, an unending series of choices, challenges, and transformations. Most people long for closure, for certainty, for the comfort of knowing that everything has been resolved. But such certainty is a myth. The truth is that growth is eternal. The self is never finished. To embrace this is to accept that every day is an opportunity for reflection, for learning, and for refinement. Mistakes are not failures but mirrors, showing where we need to evolve. Struggle is not punishment but a guide, illuminating the areas where our will has yet to assert itself fully. Nietzsche called this process the creation of the higher self, a being forged continuously through effort, courage, and awareness. Each step, each reflection, each act of intention shapes the individual who is becoming, not merely who exists. In this endless practice, the mind grows sharper, the will stronger, and the life more authentic. The abyss that once intimidated now offers perspective. The chaos of the world becomes the canvas on which the self can paint its own meaning. Fully aware and fully present. There is no rush, no urgency imposed by time. Growth is measured not in hours or days, but in depth, in awareness, and in the courage to continue shaping oneself in the face of uncertainty. In this reflection, the listener finds not only wisdom, but a meditative rhythm, a gentle, continuous unfolding that prepares the mind to rest, to absorb, and to drift into the quiet of night. The last whisper of the abyss. As the night deepens and the world falls silent, the abyss no longer threatens. It has become a companion, a teacher, and a mirror reflecting the journey of your own becoming. Nietzsche's philosophy is not meant to frighten or unsettle, it is meant to awaken. It reminds us that life is raw, unpredictable, and unbounded by the illusions we cling to, and yet, within that boundlessness lies freedom, creativity, and the quiet power of self-mastery. The abyss whispers not of despair, but of possibility. It invites you to reflect on your own path, to examine your choices, to embrace your struggles, and to forge meaning where none was given. Every thought, every moment, every breath is an opportunity to step closer to the self you are capable of becoming. And as you listen to these truths, allow yourself to sink into stillness. Let the ideas settle gently. like pebbles falling into a compound, the chaos, the struggle. The weight of existence, all of it finds its place within you. Here, in the quiet, there is a profound serenity, the knowledge that you are not lost, but becoming, that the darkness of the abyss is not empty, but alive with potential, and that your own will, your own reflection, and your own courage are enough to navigate the uncertainty of life. Sleep now, with the echo of these thoughts as a guide. Let the wisdom of the night, the silence of the abyss, and the power of your own becoming carry you gently into rest, for in the morning the journey continues and you will rise, aware, intentional, and alive. Conclusion. Nietzsche's philosophy is not a set of rules to follow, nor a doctrine to obey. It is an invitation to face the abyss, to embrace freedom, to create your own meaning, and to forge a life that is authentically yours. The path is neither easy nor comfortable. It demands reflection, courage, and a willingness to confront your deepest fears and desires. Yet within this challenge lies the greatest reward, the discovery of your own strength, the clarity of your own values, and the profound serenity that comes from living intentionally. As you close your eyes and allow these thoughts to settle, remember that life is a continuous process of becoming. Each moment offers the opportunity to grow, to reflect, to create, and to embrace the freedom that comes from knowing that the only true limits are the ones you accept. Rest now, with the understanding that the abyss is not empty, but full of possibility. Sleep with the quiet knowledge that your journey, your growth, and your becoming continue even in the stillness of the night and when morning comes. Rise with intention, courage, and the will to live fully, shaping each day as an act of your own creation.